kidding me. Oh,
Morning,
and
how are
that's
you?
firefighters, police officers.
Yes, sir. Good morning. No, that's fine.
Hot healthcare workers, yeah. Yeah, yeah, because healthcare workers were not involved prior. Yeah. Okay, well, I guess you could. You'll see what, you're gonna get some. I don't know what it's gonna be. Yeah.
You're good. Well, we never know either, so thank you. I try to be here if I can. Morning, how are you? Everything good? Good. Yeah, nope, I'm good, thank you. I just saw them, so they're on the way up.
Actually, Stephanie is our governor thing, but I think it's Kate's her assistant.
Okay, all right, let me,
Stephanie's not here, but
Okay.
Kate, I think I saw Katie.
okay, all right, thanks.
How's it going, Dave?
Well, good, how are you doing?
Good,
Good.
good. Busy man, huh?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, especially now.
I always try to come. The last few times I was on the road or something was going on, so
Well,
glad to be here when I can.
we got another 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, another week and 2 days, week and 2 days, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Almost there.
You get a vacation then?
No, the last, now all the stuff they gave us to do, we gotta go do it, right?
Oh, that's true. That's
Take a long
true.
weekend or something.
Yeah.
Business good?
How's the governor's reelection?
Good, good.
Good.
As far as I can see, yeah, should be fine.
Should be good.
Should be good. Good morning, Chairman.
Good morning. Good morning, Sandra.
Good morning, Ron. Good morning, Secretary.
How are you?
Oh, we only got a minute.
How's Broward?
Enjoying the beautiful
It's
weather this
nice
morning.
here, yeah. It's gonna get up to it's 40 degrees.
Yeah, I saw that. It's a big difference. Good
Mario
morning.
says if you're not here in time, don't, just stop.
They can start without me, they couldn't start without her.
No, that's true. Is it time? Nope. 1 minute?
Long agenda today. All right.
I'm waiting for Sheila to give me a thumbs
Oh,
up.
yeah, well, it's 8:29, so I guess one more minute.
Okay. Okay, I got the thumb. Okay, we'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. Sheila, would you please call the roll, please?
Ron Lieberman,
Here?
Ryan Benson, Sandra Einhorn,
Here.
Mario Pacella,
Here.
David Hall,
Here.
Dev Matwani, and Dane Eagle.
Here.
Thank you. For those wondering about the Wi-Fi, it's FSU event, and there's no password.
Okay. Thank you, Sheila. Okay, any public comment on any agenda item? Okay, seeing none, we need a motion on the minutes.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second, any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion carries. Approval of consent items. Consent item E is being pulled from the consideration. Trey, anything else?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, we're pulling consent item E that's related to a deal that's going to be in the supplemental request under multifamily. I have not heard from any board members if they would like any items pulled from consent other than that. And so, unless there's any now.
No.
Okay?
Chair,
See-
I have one comment, if that's okay.
Yes.
Just on
Dan.
agenda item A, we've been working very closely with Florida Housing Finance Corporation, of course, Director Trey Price. So we certainly understand the need to extend the closing date for some of these, given the state of inflation, labor market supplies, supply delays. Just for public note for everybody, these funds do expire, according to HUD, within about 2 years after this extension, so we want to work very closely. We will continue to work very closely with Florida Housing Finance Corporation to make sure we make that deadline, and we'll stay on track, but thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, can I just
Yes.
clarify that it's consent item E,
under the Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery portion of the consent agenda, not the multifamily programs
Yep.
portion, so.
Okay. Thank you, David.
yeah.
Okay, anything else? Seeing none, I need a motion.
I'll make a motion. So moved.
I have a second. Have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay, External Affairs, Trey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Stephanie Sutton sends her regards. She's unfortunately out sick, but she is following online today, so hope Stephanie is feeling better. I can give a quick update as far as the legislation and the budget as we know it as of now. Last night, our Senate Bill 196, and that is the bill that deals with the State Board of Administration. And our primary bill and piece of legislation this year was sent from the Senate over to the House, so that was great news. And so the House is set to pass that bill, hopefully, as possibly, I doubt they'll do it today, but probably Monday or Tuesday of next week. So that's great news, and send it to the governor. So good news on that front. Any questions about Senate Bill 196?
Nope.
Okay.
Sandy?
Great. The other major issue, of course, is the state budget. And the House and Senate, I'll start with the good news. The good news is that the House and Senate have apparently agreed to the amount, and that is about $338 million for housing this year. That would leave a little over $40 million unallocated. But they have agreed on the SHIP amount, and that's like $209 million, I think. Angie, is that accurate? So they've agreed on the SHIP funding, which quite honestly, SHIP funding has been, pretty tough been the tougher to secure of late. But they've agreed on those amounts. Now the question is the $123.5 million or so. I'm sorry, 128, okay, thank you. The $128 million, the House is looking to do all of that for down payment assistance for hometown heroes, the folks who are, employed in various like firefighters, first responders, police officers, et cetera. The Senate continues to use that money for the SAIL program. So they seem to be currently, at odds on how to spend that money. So we're hoping to get some SAIL out of it. I mean, that's what we're trying to, out of the budget, we're trying to get them to authorize some SAIL, and we're also trying to point at that 40 so million that I was pointing out that was unallocated. So, so we're working, the budgets have been bumped up to their respective chairs. So that's Chairman Trumbull from Panama City and Senator Stargell from Lakeland to work out as many details as they can be. And then at some point, I think Sunday this weekend, the budget will be bumped up to the Speaker and the Senate President. So they hope to get everything ironed out. And then to get out of here on time on Friday before midnight, they have to have the budget on their desks by Tuesday night. So hopefully everything gets worked out and they need to print it up and put it on the legislators' desks or email them or whatever the 2022, version of putting it on their desk is, so that they can leave on time. So those are the major pieces of legislation and, of course, the budget that we're following. There are a few other affordable housing bills that, nibble around the edges about some certain things like property taxes and some other issues that we're, of course, keeping tabs on. And we also want to make sure no unfriendly amendments get on. This is that time of year where fun things happen, and we try to follow as many issues as we can and get out in front of things, and we're playing goalie. But that's what we're doing, and we're staying busy through the end. So happy to take any questions from any board members.
Any questions for Trey? A little comment from me. SAIL is real important to us because it's used on a lot of 4% deals, and it makes a lot of our projects feasible that normally wouldn't be without it. So it's important if anybody happens to go up the hill and talk to somebody in the next day or two, it might be helpful. As a home builder, I like to see, homes, as many homes as possible, but as a board member, I just want to say that the importance of sale is extremely important in what we do.
Yep, and Mr. Chairman, I just want to give a shout out to my team. They're incredible. They've been, available at all hours of the day and night and to take questions and answer questions from legislators and staff. And hopefully we'll end up with a successful session. I'm very hopeful that'll be the case. And hopefully we get, like I say, some money, a good amount of money allocated for SHIP, and we can hopefully do down payment assistance, and everybody goes home happy. So, we're hopeful, and I want to thank my team publicly for all their help during this these crazy 50. I guess we're in day 52 or so. So thanks again.
Okay. Okay.
Chair?
Anything?
Yep.
Anything?
One
Yes, Dave.
comment, I think they still do print the budget, so fingers crossed the printer doesn't get jammed.
Yeah.
Thank you. Oh, multifamily programs. It's the Marissa Button Show.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will begin with item A, that's RFA 2021-204. This is a housing credit financing for the preservation of existing affordable multifamily housing developments. We issued this RFA on November 4th, offering just over $4 million in 9% housing credits for the preservation of existing multifamily housing developments in medium or large counties. We had the deadline for applications on December 7th. We received 5 applications in response to this RFA. Our review committee members independently evaluated and scored their assigned portions of the applications. And at the February 22nd review committee meeting, they presented their scores, and the committee carried out the funding selection process set forth in the RFA. And you have a link to the scoring process there in your materials. The RFA 2021-204 all applications chart that you have in your materials is Exhibit A, lists the eligible and ineligible applications. There were no ineligible applications. The review committee considered a motion to approve the scoring results that you have in Exhibit A, and a motion to recommend that the board approve the scoring results and the recommendations for funding set out on Exhibit A, and those motions passed unanimously. So our recommendation for you today is to approve the committee's recommendations that you adopt the scoring results of the 5 applications and authorize the tentative selection of the 5 applications set out in Exhibit A for funding. And if no notice of protest or formal written protest is filed, which we certainly hope there won't be because all applications were able to be funded here, we will proceed with issuing an invitation to enter credit underwriting to those applications in Exhibit A. And there is just over 85,000 and 9% housing credits remaining, and we will make a recommendation on that remaining funding at a further point in time as we get further along in the RFA cycle. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to staff recommendation on item A.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. Motion carries. Item B.
Thank you. This is RFA 2021-206, home financing for the construction of small rural developments. We issued this RFA on December 15th, offering $20 million in home funding for developments in rural areas. The deadline for applications was January 25th. We received 9 applications in response to this RFA. Our review committee members independently evaluated and scored their assigned portions of the applications. And at the February 23rd review committee, the members presented their scores, and the committee carried out the funding selection process set forth in the RFA. In your materials, you have Exhibit B, the RFA 2021-206 all applications chart, and that lists the eligible and ineligible applications in their application number order. The review committee considered a motion to approve the scoring results that are in Exhibit B and the recommendations for funding that you have in your materials as Exhibit C, and then a motion to recommend that you, the board, approve the scoring results set out in Exhibit B and the recommendations for funding in Exhibit C. And those motions passed unanimously. And so our recommendation is that you approve the committee's recommendations for the scoring results of the 9 applications in Exhibit B, authorize the tentative selection of the 3 applications set out in Exhibit C for funding. And then, this is in addition to review committee recommendations, we're making another supplemental recommendation to you here today that's set forth in your materials. There's just under $3 million in home funding remaining in this RFA after funding all of the eligible applications, which isn't enough to pull up another remaining eligible application. And so the RFA sets forth that any remaining funding can be distributed as approved by the board. So in addition to the remaining funding in this RFA, we also have additional home funding available to fund a maximum of 1 additional eligible application. David Westcott and I have been communicating on that. And so we think this is a great opportunity for you to utilize the remaining funding in this RFA and essentially a binding amount of funding to pull up 1 additional available eligible unfunded application. And that would be according to the county award tally in the RFA. And so the next highest ranking eligible application is Pollywog Creek Muse. That's application number 2022-242H. And their request amount is $5,690,000 in home funding. And so if there's no notice of protest or formal written protest filed, we would proceed to issue invitations to enter credit underwriting to all of those successful applications. If there is a notice of protest or formal written protest filed, at the completion of any and all litigation, we would present you with the recommended order for board approval prior to issuing invitations to enter credit underwriting. And this is really important for the record. If, as a result of the litigation, the application funding order changes, so if for some reason it is no longer Pollywog Creek Muse application being the 4th application, we have reviewed and there's enough home funding available to fund a total of 4 applications regardless of the results of litigation. So we just want to be really clear that if anything happens after this point, it's not the limited amount for that applications. We have enough to pull up whatever 4th application as the result of any litigation may be in the pool of applicants here. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to staff recommendation on item B.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Motion carries. Item C.
Okay, item C is our 2022-104 sale financing for farm worker and commercial fishing worker housing. Need to slow down. On December 9th, we issued this RFA offering $5,125,000 in sale funding for applicants proposing the construction of commercial fishing worker or farm worker developments or the substantial rehabilitation or acquisition and substantial rehabilitation of existing farm worker or commercial fishing worker developments that are currently in the corporation's portfolio or USDA RD's portfolio. And we had the deadline for applications as January 20th. We received 1 application in response to this RFA. Our review committee members independently reviewed and evaluated their assigned portions of the application submitted, and at the February 23rd review committee meeting carried out the scoring and funding selection process set forth in the RFA. And so we have the chart in your materials as Exhibit D that shows the scoring result of that eligible application. And there, that was the only eligible application and there was no other applications that were submitted. And so our review committee considered the motion to approve the scoring results and that recommendation for funding, as well as a motion to recommend that you, the board, approve the scoring results and the recommendations for funding in Exhibit D. And those motions passed unanimously. And so our recommendation is that you, the board, go ahead and adopt the scoring results of that application and the tentative selection of the application set out on Exhibit D for funding. And we, because it's only 1 application, we don't anticipate any formal written protest in this case. And so we'll proceed to issue an invitation to enter credit underwriting to that application. There is $825,000 in sale funding remaining, and as the RFA states, any remaining funding will be distributed as approved by the board. We're going to hold off on a recommendation at this point. We'll be probably coming to you next month as we see how everything flows out with the sale program as the legislative session concludes, and we'll make a recommendation at that point in time. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I need a motion to staff recommendation, item C.
So moved.
Okay. Motion and second. Any discussion?
I just have a question. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on why there was only one application for this RFA?
And that's a common question in this RFA. It's not a heavily subscribed to RFA. It's a very unique demographic that the source is utilizing, but it's a statutorily mandated demographic that we use sale resources to serve. And so we have brought in this RFA in the past. In some years, it had been just rehab, and we brought in new construction. We brought in, added both in, and so we've done different things to attract a pool of applicants. So we're happy we have an applicant, and we're able to fund development at this point.
Thanks.
Thank you.
I think-
And, sorry,
yeah,
Bill, yes.
I think also the issue, as we know, that the agriculture business and commercial fishing business is changing, throughout Florida. So the workers, farm workers and fishing workers may look different as to kind of the makeup, if they're, they work across farms, or they're more settled and more into now landscape business. So it's interesting to follow this, and as the board may remember that the set aside was originally at 10% of the sale appropriation each year, and because of the decrease in need for particular type of housing, we were able to work with the legislature, and that set aside was decreased to at least 5%.
Yep. Anything else? I can tell you that it's really great to get an application.
Right.
I know we do this every year, and it's always undersubscribed, so. Okay, all right.
We've a couple of those undersubscribed RFAs
Yeah.
annually. Yeah.
Okay, we need to vote. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Seeing none, motion carries. Multifamily, item D.
Thank you. This is RFA 2022-301, Housing Credit Financing for Affordable Housing Developments located in Duval County. And just as a reminder, the reason this is a Duval-specific RFA is because we had returned funding on a development from last year's large 6 RFA, and so you all authorized us to turn around a very quick RFA for Duval County here. And so on January 24th, we issued that RFA offering just over $1.8 million in 9% housing credits, and the deadline for applications was February 8th. So that was a quick turnaround, and we received 4 applications in response to this RFA. Our review committee members independently evaluated and scored their assigned portions of the applications, and at the February 22nd review committee meeting, they presented their scores and carried out the funding selection process in accordance with the RFA. The 2022-301 applications chart you have in Exhibit E lists the eligible and ineligible applications and their assigned application number order. And there were no ineligible applications in this RFA. The review committee considered motions to approve the scoring results in Exhibit E and the funding recommendations in Exhibit F, and a motion to recommend that you, the board, approve those scoring results in Exhibit E and the recommendations for funding in Exhibit F, and those passed unanimously. And so that is our recommendation for you today, to approve the committee's recommendations that the board adopt the scoring results of the 4 applications and authorize the tentative selection of the 1 application in Exhibit F for funding. If there's no notice of protest or formal written protest filed, we'll proceed with issuing an invitation to credit underwriting to the application in Exhibit F. If there is a notice of intent to protest and formal written protest, we'll come back to you at the conclusion of all litigation and any recommended orders for the approval prior to issuing invitations to enter credit underwriting. And there are no housing credit funding remaining here, and so that's our recommendation today in this RFA. Thank you.
Thank you. I need a motion to staff recommendation.
So
Item
moved.
D.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item E.
Okay, item E, this one's a little different. It's really timing based. We're coming to you with a request for approval to allocate remaining funding from RFA 2021-201 to RFA 2022-208. And so on July 20th, we issued RFA 2021-201, and that's housing credit financing for developments in small and medium counties. And our review committee met in that RFA on November 18th and selected 10 applications for funding. And those recommendations for funding were approved by you, the board, at the December board meeting. And there was $576,850 in housing credits remaining. And petitions were filed in that RFA, and hearings were held before an ALJ on February 9th, and we're still waiting for the results of that litigation, and anticipate it will probably come to you at the July, or excuse me, not July, hopefully, the April 29th board meeting. So we're waiting on that recommended order. But as we've reviewed any potential result of that litigation that's pending, regardless of the result, it's clear that it will have at least $300,000 in available housing credits remaining. And so this timing works in conjunction with the workshop that we've held in the RFA that we are going to soon issue for the workforce housing in Monroe County RFA 2022-208. And that workshop was held on January 26, 2022, and we are currently offering $5,520,000 in sale funding for that RFA and $1,500 in housing credits for workforce housing in Monroe County. And so that is a Monroe County specific RFA because we need to utilize remaining sale funding that is in previous legislative sessions been dedicated through proviso to workforce housing in Monroe County. And so the other piece of this that's important to know is that when you all approved the QAP for the housing credits last spring, you utilized a portion of your 5% board high priority to have credits dedicated to a Monroe County workforce RFA, as we've done in years past. And so what we're seeking to do is add that $300,000 available to make a more robust Monroe County RFA to ideally get some more units there, either through a larger development or two smaller developments. And the reason we think this makes sense is because through the extra funding in RFA 2021-201 is because that included small county funding. So you're going from small county, small and medium county, but available small county is putting towards a small county. And that will allow us, hopefully through a robust application process, to utilize the remaining sale proviso that was dedicated to Monroe County. So that is the basis for our recommendation today, to authorize the staff to allocate the $300,000 of remaining remaining housing credit funding from RFA 2021-201 to 2022-208. And of course, we would come back to you at the conclusion of the litigation with a recommendation for any additional funding. There may be additional funding remaining from that 201 RFA. We just don't know at this point in time yet. Thank you.
Okay, I need a motion to staff recommendation.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes,
Yeah.
I have a question.
Go ahead, David.
Marissa, on the small and the medium county, how do we define a small and medium county? And how often does that designation, can we check as far as those numbers?
Yeah, it's under 100. That's a population designation, and so it's under 100,000. And is that for small county? And that designation hasn't changed in a number of years. I'm not aware of that changing.
So a small county is under 100,000. What about a medium?
The medium,
Is it 500?
850, and then above 850 is large.
How often do they check? Because I know, we have so many people moving to Florida. So
Yeah.
how often do they check that to,
We
as far as
review
the-
every year before we go out and issue the next cycle of RFAs.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, anything else? Okay. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, motion carries. Okay, multifamily supplemental.
Okay, this is a supplemental item, and it is in some ways related to the removal of the consent item for the CDBG DR consent items. So this is a request to exchange the original award of CDBG DR funding with available corporation resources for the application Metro Grant 3, and that the RFAs that it was funded in are set forth there, and the application number. On July 30th, we had issued the RFA 2019-102 Community Development Block Grant Disaster Recovery, we say CDBG-DR, to be used in conjunction with tax-exempt bonds and non-competitive housing credits in counties deemed hurricane recovery priorities. And the applicant so this application was funded through that RFA following the completion of litigation, and we issued a preliminary commitment letter on those resources on April 23rd, 2020. The applicant had a deadline of April 24th, 2021 to complete the credit underwriting report and be issued a firm loan commitment. On March 12th, the board approved an extension of the firm loan commitment to October 28th, 2021 due to conditions created by the COVID-19 pandemic. We received a final credit underwriting report on September 2nd, 2021 for the CDBG-DR loan and the competitive housing credits. And the board approved the credit underwriting report on September 10th, and the firm loan commitment was issued. And so pursuant to that RFA, developments are required to comply with HUD environmental regulations as provided in 24 CFR Part 58, as well as the National Environmental Policy Act of 1969. Additional environmental compliance requirements were added to the funding in the Federal Register, authorizing to use the CDBG-DR for Hurricane Irma. The development that we're talking about today will not be able to achieve compliance with those additional HUD environmental requirements and will not be eligible to utilize the CDBG-DR funding. And in your materials, you have their request to the corporation to return the CDBG-DR funding in exchange for other available corporation funding. And so our recommendation for you is to approve the request for alternative available corporation funding that we believe will be comprised of program income that's earned from previous disaster funding as long as the applicant returns the CDBG-DR funding. So what we're looking at is essentially going through all of that in writing here, but what we're really looking at here is an exchange of funding, and we're looking at our own resources where we have program income from old RRLP disaster recovery type RFAs to make this applicant whole, and they have moved significantly through the process, and I think that's a really important consideration about this. They're ready to close and would like to do so, and so we want to see it across the finish line and think it's an important request for you to consider and merits consideration. Thank you.
Could I have a motion on the recommendation?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
A motion, a second. Discussion.
May I provide one other point through discussion, Chair?
Please.
Thank you. I just also wanted to put on the record the source, because it will be program income from another sale-type program. This will operate as a sale loan with a traditional 1% interest rate, and Chapter 6748 will apply. And so I just want that to be reflected in the minutes because it will no longer be a forgivable loan. But the applicant is aware of that as well, and we've talked through that with them as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? No. Seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Marissa.
Absolutely. Professional services, selection A, David.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman and board members. I'm David Hearn, the Chief Information Officer. This item is requesting authorization for a competitive solicitation for Unified Threat Management hardware. Unified Threat Management is better known as firewall technologies. Florida Housing currently uses Checkpoint Technologies premium UTM software and has budgeted for a hardware upgrade in 2022. This upgrade is critical to supporting ongoing efforts to prevent, detect, and respond to a wide range of potential threats to our network quickly and effectively. Our recommendation is to authorize staff to proceed with a competitive solicitation to procure the required hardware required to support Florida Housing's UTM systems. Thank you.
Okay, I have a motion.
So moved.
Second. Any
Second.
Yes. Thank you. I have a motion second. Any discussion? That was a very enthusiastic second.
Well, usually we're competing for motion and second when no one spoke up.
Yeah. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Okay. Item B, that's you, Bill?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. This item is competitive solicitation. This action, item B is competitive solicitation for the Housing Stability for Homeless School Children initiative. Just to give a little background, in 2017, Florida Housing launched the homeless school children pilot or demonstration to evaluate the use of Florida Housing's federal home funds for tenant-based rental assistance, paired with the Department of Education's McKinney-Vento homeless education program resources, as well as a community-based management resources to help families with school-age children who are experiencing homelessness to establish housing stability and achieve optimal self-sufficiency. The first pilot was in Santa Rosa County, and we added a second site in Hernando County. The results from these two pilot projects were very successful, which led to the prioritization of moving the pilot or demonstration to a more formalized effort within Florida Housing, and we renamed it, I think more appropriately, Housing Stability for Homeless School Children Initiative. In May 2020, with approval of the board, Florida Housing staff took efforts to replicate the best practices learned from these pilot projects and expand the initiative into additional counties and expand the eligible counties to those with populations at or below 400,000 persons. Previously, it was at or below 100,000 persons. Staff developed a competitive solicitation with the intent to award up to 3 counties with up to $500,000 in home funds each to provide tenant-based rental assistance for families with children participating in the school district's McKinney-Vento program, which is the homeless education program. And I just want to say that the award of $500,000, basically it's that pool is used over time based on, the ramp up of the program, the number of families that are in the program, as well as the rents and the ability for each household to pay the rent. So it wasn't like they had to use the $500,000 in a one-year period. Again, the initiative assists eligible households obtain and keep suitable rental housing for a period of up to 24 months. I think the uniqueness and I think the good part of this program is the other piece of that is the community partnerships that, the home funds, tenant-based rental assistance help the families get into, the front door of permanent housing, but then you need each family needs specific assistance, either short-term or longer-term, immediate or over time services to, again, assist that family that at the end of the 24 months, they're prepared to be more sufficient, pay the rent on their own for permanent housing, and hopefully have left the program with much greater self-sufficiency around employment and income. The supportive services are provided by the successful applicants of the county partnerships. Each partnership must include a commitment from the representatives of the county school district, the local public housing authority who administers the tenant-based rental assistance, a case management organization, and the partnership usually includes the local homeless continuum of care lead agency. Florida Housing currently supports 5 counties participating in the initiative. They are Alachua Bay, Charlotte, Hernando, and Santa Rosa counties. Staff meet regularly with members from each of the counties' partnership to address specific questions and challenges faced. Additionally, we work to coordinate peer meetings between the counties to foster collaborative approaches. And it's interesting, each collaborative approach, it's centered around the same intent and goals and objectives, but it looks different in each of the counties. So, I want to thank my staff as well as David Westcott's staff, because they have worked really closely with the counties. As you can imagine, bringing a partnership such as this together, as well as, serving this population, especially during, the pandemic, it has been quite a challenge, and the program still continues and moving forward in each of the areas. Just wanted to, we do an analysis each year looking at the statistics basically, as well as best practices that come out. For the November of 2020 through November of 2021, there were a number of families served were 101 over the 5 counties. Each county partnership has a goal of serving 25 families a year. The number of children served were 281. The student achievement, students increased their grades to A, B, or C, or satisfactory. Depending on the county, it ranged from 70 to 800% of the students in the program increased their grades. There also showed an average increase of that student population from being pre-housed to post-housed of a 70% increase in attendance, which is huge. For the adult outcomes, 25% of the adults increased their income during the evaluation period. For some, to the point where they were able to pay their own rent before the end of the program period. Across the initiative counties, we have worked with local partnerships that concerning improvement in employment. Each of the households, if needed, worked with CareerSource to improve their employment abilities, because a lot of the households who were employed maybe had 2 or 3 part-time jobs. They moved into full-time jobs. So thank you, Secretary Eagle with CareerSource, for assisting those households in each of these areas. It's been a good partnership. As I said, all the households were provided weekly, bi-weekly, or case management calls or visits, depending on the needs. And also, they were hooked up. Basically, the community took these families in and basically provided household goods, provided transportation, help with mentoring, counseling, things like that. So it's been really exciting to see how this initiative has been an impetus for communities to kind of get together and help. 2 families in this period were able to eventually qualify for home ownership and purchased a home during their 24-month period. The biggest challenge is right now is housing stock, finding housing stock, especially within the available rents. It's taken, for the most part, up to 35 days for a family to find housing after a voucher was issued. But the average time, again, with the partnership working with the community, the average time is around 2 to 3 weeks once they're issued that. So Florida Housing has done its due diligence to determine if a new competitive solicitation should be issued to add additional county partnerships to the initiative. Staff believes that based upon identified needs throughout the state, the continuation of this strategy can and will meet housing stability needs of eligible households in targeted counties with populations at or below 400,000. So we ask the recommendation that the board authorize Florida Housing to issue a new competitive solicitation to expand the housing stability for homeless school children initiative with up to 3 new county partnerships. Each board-approved applicant will be eligible to receive up to $500,000 in home funds to provide tenant-based rental assistance for families with children participating in the respective schools' McKinney-Vento program for homeless school children. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
The discussion.
I just want to make a comment. First of all, I want to applaud the efforts in this program.
Yeah.
Very close to me because I was one of these kids in the 80s. So, awesome, awesome job, and I just hope it continues to grow.
Thank you.
I also echo the same sentiment, but the question that I have on that is the amount that the families are awarded. Is that something that is allocated by the counties? And then also, the second question that I had in regards to that, does that preclude those families from receiving any other type of assistance since they're receiving it from the county?
Actually, with Florida Housings, and you can correct me or add to it, David, but the tenant-based rental assistance is provided through Florida Housing through its home funds. So that is determined, eligibility of the families based on need, income. And let me start out by saying that the families are screened by the school district. So we have a formal way of screening for each of the counties, so it's consistent. But once they're screened, they're referred to the public housing agency in that county who is administering the TBRA funds for Florida Housing. And then the public housing agency then conducts, the determination of the eligibility of the families. But what we try to do is try to expedite that process, and through the screening process, hopefully it's more efficient to when those households are sent to the Public Housing Authority, that they're most likely, unless something isn't found in the screening process, they're going to be eligible again, because these families are moving all over the place. The parents are so what we try to do is consolidate this eligibility process kind of into one time at one place, where all the folks who do the eligibility determination and screening meet the family, that the family doesn't have to go to all the different places to get to determine eligibility. And that, as I said, the amount depends on the rent, as well as the income and the ability to pay for each household. And I don't know fully the answer if it kind of keeps them from other assistance, but I have not heard that, sir.
Yeah, I have not heard that either, Bill, that it prevents them. As Bill said, there's a formula by county of a maximum rental amount that we can assist families with. And if anything, that formula is not kept up with rental rates in counties. And so in certain areas, that's been something that the families and the PHA and everyone's had to work around to try to find suitable housing, at the maximum rental amount that we can provide through these home TBRA funds.
Also, has there been any, maybe this is something my bright idea, but as far as using those families, you said 2 families have just recently purchased a home, as far as a mentorship program to help those that are looking to get into it?
Actually, that has come up by a number of the partnerships as a lesson learned and a best practice. We also realized that, there were a number of folks in the business community, including local banks, financial counselors, to help families, start savings accounts, budgeting, to the point of working with them through education to kind of say, this is what it's like, and this is what it's going to take to get into your own home and maintain that home, and then help them actually with down payment assistance, or helping them with accessing a mortgage.
And our homebuyer program staff have done a couple of trainings for the PHAs involved in this so that they can make the proper referrals and get them with, a realtor, a loan officer, local housing counseling agency to get them credit qualified. So, if anything, this partnership just keeps expanding and getting better and has, ended up in home ownership in 2 of these instances as well.
And I think one better way to show the importance of these funding is to be able to have those PSAs, so to speak, that are showing that this is what your money is going. I know I was at a Florida Housing Coalition, had like awards, and they were showing those videos of individuals who thought they couldn't purchase a home, that purchased a home, or got into a home. So it was moving, letting them know that there's opportunities out there.
And
Thank you.
with some of these families, their feeling of security, I guess because of their experiences through their life, is the only way that they feel secure, and that's why their goal is to be able to have their own home. Because that's,
Thank you.
I just have one other question. So you said the 281 families were served, is that correct?
there's 101 families served with a total of 281 children.
Children.
within this
So
household.
what's the, do you have an understanding of what the need is? Like what's, that's not a lot of people, right? So
Yes.
I imagine that issue is much larger.
Yeah, and, the need, and one of the reasons we focused on the smaller counties is because less housing stock, it's a kind of a one tool in the tool belt to assist families in these smaller communities where we may not be able to reach those communities with our traditional resources. The housing stock is a number that we have to kind of look at that and make sure that we don't bring too many families in on the front end, and then they're sitting with a voucher with the hope, and then there isn't. So there's some coordination with that, and also of just kind of in the early years from a capacity perspective of kind of learning. But to your answer, the need is much greater. And what you're seeing, across the state is that, in general, the homeless numbers of such as the point-in-time counts that count individuals in shelters or on the streets or in really emergency situations has gone down over time, and the state has done a really good job in kind of helping to decrease that, and what you think of more of the chronically homeless individuals. But what you're seeing is the counts of households with children living more unstably, and meeting the broader homeless definition is gradually increasing.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Anything further?
Big fan of the program. Thank you, Bill. The cornerstone of, a stable family is stable housing. So I'm glad that we're able to bring together so many partners. And again, thank you to DEO for that partnership. Thank you.
All right. I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. David Westcott.
Yes. Thank you, Mr.
Another
Chairman.
David.
Item C is a request for us to go out with a competitive solicitation to provide mortgage loan servicing and other master servicer functions for our single-family homebuyer loan program. The current contract for these services with U.S. Bank expires this year and has no more extensions, and we certainly have a continuing need for these services. So the recommendation is that you authorize staff to proceed with a competitive solicitation to select one or more qualified firms to provide servicing for the program.
Okay, need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion carries. David.
Thank you, sir. And to go sort of hand in hand with this, also our compliance administration functions that are currently performed by eHousing Plus. The contract for those services expires later this year as well. And so we would ask that the board authorize staff to proceed with a competitive solicitation to select one or more qualified firms to provide compliance administration services for the single-family homebuyer loan program.
Okay, I need a motion?
So moved.
Second? Okay, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed?
That was aye.
Motion carries. You're still up, David.
Yes, sir. So this is relating to the Home Builders New Construction Pilot Program. This was a program authorized by the board at the December 10th, 2021 meeting. The RFA was issued on January 3rd, 2022, and 5 responses were received in response to the RFA. The review committee convened and met on February 16th and provided final scores for the response, and that score sheet is attached. So as a result of that review committee meeting, the review committee recommends that the board authorize Florida Housing to proceed with the funding process for HBR Construction LLC and Homes Bring Hope LLC. Should negotiations fail, or should either firm be unsuccessful in the credit underwriting analytical review process, the review committee recommends proceeding with the 3rd highest scoring applicant, the Future Leaders Community Development Corporation.
Okay, I need a motion
So moved. Second.
and a second. Okay. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? None. Motion carries.
Yes.
Good deal.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Last item is related again to the homebuyer loan program, and it's for our TBA program. So we actually do have a renewal for this contract with Hilltop Securities, Inc., and contingent upon satisfactory performance, this contract may be renewed for an additional 2 years. So based upon that, staff recommends that the board directs staff to to proceed with the 2-year renewal option for the TBA program contract.
Okay.
Motion.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Hi, Laura. You're the only one that hasn't talked there, so. Okay. Thank you. Okay, I guess we're moving on to public comment. You have a couple things?
I have a couple things. Yep, I would be remiss if we did not introduce our new press secretary, Caroline Benson. Caroline Benson, can you stand up? This is the person that you might refer press calls to. But thank you, Carolyn. She's joined our team in the last couple of months, and she's doing a great job. We appreciate all her help. And then wanted to recognize Marissa real quick. She had another comment.
Thank you, Trey. I wanted to give an overall update after all the action items have been complete from the multifamily rental perspective relative to the state of sort of market volatility and construction cost increases, labor shortage, and all the things that are really challenging some of the developments that are in our pipeline right now. And it is a bit of deja vu because we were having these conversations at this time last year. And so we're aware that it is an issue. We're speaking with developers one-on-one. We're also engaging with the Coalition of Affordable Housing Providers, and we spoke with them yesterday on this issue, and they're providing some information to us on the trends that they're seeing as well. And so we don't have an answer to anything right now. We're trying to be really thoughtful about what kind of flexibility the corporation can provide to folks that are really in a difficult situation who have applied and are looking at somewhere between 20 to 30% cost increases, and trying to also understand whether that may settle down over time or not. And so it's not an easy thing to be figuring out, but we're fortunate that we have good partners communicating with us. And so there's a few things that we'll be looking at in the coming weeks and months, and you'll be hearing more about this, I'm sure, as well. And so one of the issues is time. And so you've seen some of the agenda items here needing extensions of time to sort of figure out whether it's seeking additional local gap funding to get these deals through the pipeline, or some other need to perhaps value engineer the developments. They may need changes to what they originally came in to move forward and stay within our program guidelines. And so we're being cognizant of that. And then the other piece is always also resources. And so right now, we do not have a designated fund for viability. As a reminder, last year, we went through that process. You all dedicated set aside demonstration funding. We went through that viability loan RFA, and we ended up only having 5 applicants after that, what we believe to be a pretty thoughtful process. And I think things aren't the same this year as they were last year. It remains to be seen what will happen, but we also need to see what comes out of the legislative budget this year overall for sale, and then look globally at what kind of options we have. One thing that we have identified, that we have communicated with our developer stakeholders on, is the use of NHTF funds, National Housing Trust Fund dollars. We have a lot of that resource. It's a little unique, and David's shop administers that. We've been in communication about that. And you've seen some of that in the board package this board meeting as well, where we've been able to provide that funding in exchange for folks set aside in units at a much lower AMI, 22% below AMI, so that's significant. But also there are environmental reviews, regulations associated with that funding. So it doesn't work for everyone, but we're getting the word out that, hey, if you've got this issue and you can demonstrate to us that you have a valid shortfall, that we'll work through the communication on that. So that's one option that we're looking at right now. Like I said, the second is being understanding from a timing perspective. And I think the third is that we're actively in rule development right now. And so we had one rule development workshop for our competitive and non-competitive programs. We're having another one coming up on March 23rd. And a part of the concept that we're talking about in that rule development is where there are opportunities in rule, be it through a deal that maybe already has had firm loan commitment and credit underwriting approval, and things have adjusted outside of their control, whether we can get some delegation of authority from board to staff to see that through the process in conjunction with our underwriting approvals, as well as certain items that have within our rule chapters limitations on changing without board approval, sort of like some of those items I talked about before, whether they need to change development type or things like that to make it more feasible to get the deals continuing to move through the pipeline, whether there's an appetite for the board to delegate staff authority to approve those things in conjunction with communication with our underwriters, and ultimately reporting to you on consistently when that kind of thing happens. So I'm not asking for that today, but sort of getting that in your brain is those are the kind of flexibility things we're working on for folks that are having issues during this time. So those are some of the updates on that, and so we'll be coming back to you definitely in the next few weeks with ideas and what we'll be looking at, and again gathering more information from the developer stakeholders that we're working with. And we are gearing up for the next RFA cycle, so this is all happening in conjunction with that discussion as well too. So we'll be going through some pretty thoughtful processes, and thanks for the time. Appreciate it.
Okay,
Thank you, Russ.
thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just add something to that real quick, I wanted to thank Secretary Eagle for his comment at the beginning of the meeting about the deadlines we're facing on the CDBG-DR funding. And, our deals are similarly situated as to the what Marissa just said. But with the exchange of funds that we had today on the Metro Grand deal, the $3 million will be, used to help with viability funding for the remaining DR deals that are struggling to get through pursuant to the authority that the board had given to us previously. So we're very cognizant of that, Mr. Secretary. We're working very closely with these developers and going to put those funds back to good use to get some deals over the finish line, we're sure.
And with the cost increases, builders and developers have had to become kind of creative to try to get through this time. So we need to try to figure out whatever we can. It's tough issue.
Marissa, can you just touch a little bit on the TDC rule and some of the issues? We spoke a little bit about that this morning. And so I just wanted the board to be kind of aware, developers are bumping up against that rule, which is also holding them up on moving forward with their projects, even though they may have, funding already sourced, to cover the higher costs.
Yes, thank you. And I meant to mention that, so thank you. Another component that, there is, we are seeing sourcing issues, but another separate issue is the total development cost per unit limitation process that we have. And just as a reminder, that's in our competitive RFAs. We have that as a cost control mechanism. And as a trend, we've seen developments as they're coming through underwriting and getting through the process, that they are bumping up against those limitations, and they are working to try to see what they need to do to get within those limitations, and sometimes that results in, needing changes to the development, and we're being cognizant of that, and providing, we're recommending to you to provide relief for them in terms of timing to be able to do that. But big picture, we have to look at overall what is appropriate for TDC. And Kevin sends his regards, Kevin Tatro, our Director of Development Finance. We are working together and working with the stakeholder community to figure out what is there an appropriate TDC level right now? Do we need to provide relief in a short time frame? These are difficult discussions, because that is from a good steward of the resources perspective, we want to have a cost control mechanism, but when things are so out of whack, I think we have to recognize the reality of the market volatility we're in as well too. So we're communicating with CAP, we're looking at what may be done in the next RFA cycle, and also any options for folks that need relief, and currently as they've come through and they're trying to get through underwriting. So all of that is also on the table for discussion right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you, Marissa.
Okay, public comment.
You can just, yeah, you can just come to the corner. Good morning.
Good morning, Ken Naylor with Atlantic Pacific on behalf of the Coalition for Affordable Housing Providers. I wanted to expand a little bit on what Marissa was talking about, but first, just some formalities. We had our annual elections yesterday. Hannah Eshkra passed the torch to me as chair. Thank you to Hannah for her 2 years of hard work. Steve Auger is the new vice chair. Nick Anamdar is the legislative chair, and Holly Croft continues as a secretary. Chris Thomas continues as our treasurer. So we're gathering data from our members to share with Florida Housing. Thus far, what we've determined is over the last 6 months, there's been average inflation of 20%, and it's across the state. It's across construction types. It's really most meteoric in the past couple of months. So on average, so far, based on the data set, that works out to $250 per unit per day. So for a 2,500 unit development, for a 100 unit development, every day is $2,500. This is really unprecedented. I've never seen anything quite this fast moving, and when you combine it with rising interest rates, it's going to require all of us to be more nimble and creative than ever before. We did have good conversations with Florida Housing at our meeting yesterday, and I would say any flexibility the board can delegate to staff and the underwriters as early as today would be extremely helpful, because if there are developments that are ready to go in the long stretch between now and your next board meeting, they should go and not get hit by that $2,500 a day. So I don't know if that may be moving too fast for everyone. I hadn't touched on that with staff, and they may shush me, which would be appropriate. But I do want to tell you all how dire this is, and know that if you don't do anything today, we probably need something done by the next board meeting. Thank you.
Let me ask you a question, because, I'm seeing it on my side with a lot of the developers that I service in the bank. How far out are subs locking in contracts?
2 weeks.
Yeah, see, it's that rapid. It really is. I mean, I don't know if we can, motion something today for flexibility with staff, but it is a very rapid moving needle.
For, may
Yeah.
I be recognized? Would perhaps the board might consider if staff can put together a recommendation and the board perhaps convene with a telephonic approval at some point soon after this meeting, for which you can then confirm in person at the next meeting. I just want to make sure we're thoughtful about what the recommendation is to you all, and that we have the legal authority through the rule and everything to do what we should be doing. So we'll confer with legal and with our stakeholders, and then maybe we can set up some type of, if that sounds reasonable to you, Trey and Ron.
I'm looking at Hugh while you're talking.
I can't. Yeah, okay, so we can discuss that if that's appropriate, but I think we'd want to be thoughtful about that before.
I do want to mention, the issue is between board meetings, if you make a change on number of units or whatever you happen to make a change on, okay, you have to wait till that board meeting is done to get approval, okay, then you go back to the city or the county or whatever for your approval, so the time is more than just between board meetings, because you don't want to make any changes or any design changes or anything until after the board approves it. So, I mean, you're looking at a longer time than just between board meetings.
I think that's a great suggestion, to motion to have staff go back and develop something for perhaps a telephonic vote.
Chairman.
Yes.
Yeah, so, thank you, Chairman. We can certainly do that. I don't need a motion to direct staff to do anything. That, we'll just do that, look into it. I would have concerns at this meeting about meeting notice requirements and the agenda and those kind of things. We want to make sure that everything's done,
Sure.
with appropriate notice, so that's why we probably can't do something right now. But we'll look at doing a telephonic, we'll look at putting everything together for a possible telephonic board meeting later this month. Because I know there is a stretch because of spring break and the legislative session and all of that. So we're at 8 weeks until the next board meeting, which is going to be in West Palm Beach on the 29th. So thank you, Ken, for bringing that to our attention. We'll look at putting something together telephonically and putting out a proper notice for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ken.
Thank you. Anyone else? Everybody's ready to go.
Well, we don't go anywhere.
We have another
do-
meeting.
Laura Cox is here for a reason, and that's for Florida
Oh,
Housing
that's
Finance
right.
3. So we'll
Okay.
adjourn and then.
Yeah, motion to adjourn?
Okay.
Second.
We'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and now we got a call to order, FHFC 3. Sheila, would you call the roll?
Ron Lieberman,
Here?
Ryan Benson, Sandra Einhorn,
Here?
Mario Ficcella,
Here.
David Hall,
Here.
Deb Matwani, and Dane Eagle.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, Laura.
Good morning. Thank you very much. So today we have a request for approval for the sale of the South Springs property. The PLP loan for this property matured May 2004, and we worked diligently to pursue a workout with them, but we ended up foreclosing on the deal, and we were the successful bidder in January 2010 at the foreclosure sale of the 92 acres of land. In April 2010, we sold 20 of those acres, and you approved that sale. You might remember this deal from last July because you ratified a proposed sale of the remaining 72 acres to a buyer for $225,000. However, that sale was not completed and the buyer withdrew. Since that time, we've received a new offer from a buyer for $300,000, and the buyer has completed their due diligence and is ready to close on that sale. So we're asking you today to please approve the sale of the remaining 72 acres for the offered price of $300,000.
Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, before we adjourn, any board member have anything?
Thank you, staff.
Being nothing,
Yeah,
we're
thank you.
adjourned.
Great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you in South Florida.
See you on the